What's up guys, and we're back with some more Genshin Impact, and today we are going to be checking out La Signora, Crimson Witch Origins. So as always, the original video will be in the description box below. But La Signora, a character that people say had like a really effed up backstory, and I never like looked into it super deep, so I'm hoping this video could explain to me and other people that don't know much about the character everything that she went through and that made her get to the point that she did, which ultimately led to, you know, spoilers if you haven't already, you know, completed the Archon quest for Inazuma. Her death ultimately led to her getting completely bodied, devil may cried, sliced into pieces, etc, etc. So yeah, as always, if you enjoy my reaction to this video, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, sit back, relax, and we're gonna get straight into this video. Let's do it.
This video will contain spoilers for the story of Genshin Impact, namely the events of Chapter 2's Electro region in Inazuma. And so if you have yet to complete the Duel Before the Throne questline, I suggest you hold off on watching this video until then. But with that out of the way, let us begin.
I think everybody and their mother knows about Signora at this point.
Number 8 of the 11 Fatui Harbingers is no more. Having been defeated by the Traveler in a duel before the throne, she was executed by way of the Raiden Shogun's ever-famed
She got one tap, bro.
sword art. Now, although this appears to be the end of the character, I believe there is still a degree of intrigue to be found in exploring the life she had lived up until then.
People think that she's gonna come back to life, but I don't know.
I am Sliceable Otaku, and with this video, we will be exploring the life and death of La Signora. We'll be exploring all available information, breaking things down, and attempting to make certain inferences for the sake of furthering our own understanding. The origins of Signora are very interesting and actually a bit out of the way, as they are majorly documented by way of several artifacts and weapons in the game. As it turns out, Signora was not a Snezhnayan native, but rather a citizen of Mondstadt, and at this time, her name was Rosalyne-Kruzchka Lohifalter. A
Rosalyne-Kruzchka Lohifalter, what?
500 years ago, which is to say that Signora was very much present during the advent of Khaenri'ah's collapse, otherwise known as the Cataclysm. Now, to properly understand Rosalyn's descent, we must first have an understanding of her lover, Rostam. Rostam, otherwise known as Wolf Pup, was a rather accomplished member of the Knights of Favonius. As a boy, he shared a dream of heroism alongside his childhood friend, the Lion of Light, and former Grandmaster of the Knights of Favonius, Arandolin.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't know any of these characters that they're mentioning. This is all new to me. This is all new information.
They would play pretend together in the nearby forest of Wolvendom, giving chase to wild boars and fighting grandiose monstrosities that resided only in their shared imagination. Arandolin was born to a long line of knights, whereas Rostam was born to a peasant family. When they would face one another with sticks and toy swords, Arandolin would win. Rostam at the time was a bit of a crybaby, but Arandolin was always there to comfort him and provide a warm smile. And both of which shared an admiration for the Dandelion Knight, the legendary hero and liberator of Mondstadt, the very first Grandmaster, Vanessa.
Oh,
whose feats of bravery were
I remember her now.
A millennia later.
Oh my god, I completely forgot that she existed.
The two followed a Seelie, which led them to a treasure which had been buried for 1,000 years, and within it was but a single yellow flower. Now when the two got older, they joined the very Knights of Favonius they had so admired. Arandolin at the time actually wielded a great sword modeled off of one possessed by a knight named Ravenwood, who was present for Vanessa's rebellion. A replica we now know as the Fairest Shadow.
I have a quick question before it goes into an ad on this. Hell no. Okay, my question is, this Genshin lore, it goes so deep, but why do they leave the tiniest little sprinkles for us in the actual game? Why don't they show us some of this super hard-hitting factual information in the game? Because this is the type of stuff that I'd really like to know more about without having to do like a deep dive. Because not everybody's, like most people, they're not going to do a super deep dive to try to figure out like, what the hell's going on. You know what I mean? Like, y'all get what I mean, right? Like, I don't know. That's my sort of pet peeve with Genshin. It's like, I know they have so much source material and so much good lore, and that can make the game so much like more like just serious and impactful, and no pun intended, but like, just why don't we see more? I don't know. Anyways,
These two were
like,
incredibly
I gotta read
formidable,
the
especially
manga for
Arandolin,
Genshin
as despite
anyways,
lacking
but
a vision, he came to be known as the Lion of Light and Grandmaster by way of his own natural gifts and sheer intensity of his training.
that's where he's getting this from, right?
Was his pride, and he himself was the pride of the country. At the age of 27, Rostam earned the title of Wolf Pup, and for the sake of
dude looks like a whelp from a
Honkai,
Honkai, bro.
The light that people needed, he in turn handled the more unsettling sides of things in the darkness. In fact, he even inherited the secret society once founded by Kruzlead, a former member of the Wanderer's Troop and wielder of the Bell.
Bro looked like Auto Apocalypse from Honkai.
Now,
Okay, let me
his
stop.
name actually was an alias. However, it would seem that he was of a similar sort to that of Eula, as he too was born to the Lawrence clan and defected from them. At the height of their power and infamy, no less. Now, Rostam was a very serious kind of guy, with an always furrowed brow. He did not drink, he did not smile, he was very blunt and avoided fun at all costs. As to him, such things were not worth the expenditure of precious time. However, there was always one person who could always melt the coldness of his demeanor. A young maiden by the name of Rosalyne-Kruzchka.
He was down bad.
Often sing in the town square. The west wind bears wine's fragrance away. The mountain wind brings glad tidings new. The breeze from afar tugs at my heart. It sings of my longing for you. Her voice was just too beautiful for even Rostam to ignore.
He's like,
and
damn.
Eventually, the two fell in love.
I gotta get with her.
However, Rosalyne was more than just a pretty face. She also possessed an exceptionally gifted mind, and as such would go on to attend the most prestigious institute in all of Teyvat, the Sumeru Academia, the very institution Lisa attended in her youth. What is an incredibly rigorous alma mater, notorious for taking students many years to graduate from. However, before she left for her studies, Rostam had gifted her a special hydro timepiece that, with a single cycle, would serve to indicate the time required for her to complete her studies. And again, considering the uncertainty of just how long it would take someone to complete their studies at the institution, this to me goes to show just how much faith Rostam had in the brilliance of his love. Now, the exact time frame allocated is not exactly clear, but we do know that Lisa was recognized to be the most gifted student the school had seen in 200 years after graduating in the span of 2. And so if Rosalyn's timing was at all similar, suffice to say she would be one of the most intelligent characters in the series thus far. But
and yet we barely see Lisa.
His influences on the Knights of Favonius may even be recognized to this day, as his very own single-handed sword form is essentially used as the standard, known as the Favonius blade work. Meanwhile, Grandmaster Arandolin had a style of his own, which entailed the simultaneous use of a longsword and a...
I know I keep saying this, but it keeps throwing me off. I know that they make Honkai and Genshin characters, some of them look similar, but Jesus, that looked like Kiana's dad.
However, this was almost immediately lost to time on account of its impracticality for anyone who did not boast the same degree of incredible strength that he possessed. And also during this time, Rostam mentored a young noble by the name of Roland, who would come to be known as the White Knight. Thanks to Rostam, he was taught principles of chivalry, justice, and swordsmanship. It was Rostam's belief that so long as his protege was sufficiently prepared, if the day ever came where he himself would not be able to protect Mondstadt or the people he so cherished, the White Knight would be able to do so in his stead. And so at this point in time, life was good. However, things would unfortunately
the Fire Nation attacked
turn for the absolute worst.
Here we go.
The underground kingdom of Khaenri'ah, the fabled pride of humanity, a civilization forged not by any god, but rather the perseverance of man, was smited by Celestia and the 7 Archons in accordance to the heavenly principles. An act of such unfathomable decimation.
Where is that from?
Ramifications on the entirety of Teyvat. As from the fallen nation would emerge horrifying monstrosities which would challenge all that drew breath.
Chat, where is that from? Is this from an early animation in the game or something that I just don't recognize, or where is this from? Because I don't remember, but I've seen this picture as of late
Prior
of
to
that
it,
screen cap.
Grandmaster Arandolin would call for Rostam to share a drink with him. To follow this, the Grandmaster would lead the Knights of Favonius on an expedition to Khaenri'ah to combat the creatures. And the circumstances surrounding this advent were so dire in fact that even the otherwise frivolous Animo Archon Venti would heed the cries of his faithful. For the sake of protecting the dream of his late friend and ensuring the beautiful fields of the region would remain evergreen, he emerged from his slumber, riding atop the mighty sky dragon, Dvalin, together combating the serpentine shadow dragon known as Durin, a skeletal blight of corruption that had once dreamed of befriending Dvalin and the citizens of Mondstadt, only to have his otherwise gentle heart awakened on the precipice of death, wishing that they might have met under better circumstances. And on the ground there were a number of fatalities, and soon to be among them was Rostam. As he fell and the blood poured out from his wounds, he felt a solace in knowing that at the very least, the love of his life was abroad and safe from harm. But oh, how he longed to hear her song just once more. And he was glad his friend and his protege were alive as well, honestly believing that once Rosalyne had returned, the calamity would have all blown over.
But
Rostam
it didn't.
was dead. Now,
rest in peace to him. there goes the ad again. Huh? Rest in peace to him. Freaking sheesh.
Now, the loss of Rostam had a major impact on all those who were close to him. Never again did Arandolin wield a blade. He denounced his position as Grand Master of the Knights effective immediately, and returned to his childhood home a husk of a man. But in pilfering through the spoils of his first adventure
Became
with
an alcoholic.
Rostam, he again discovered the small yellow flower they had
Say
treasured
Jack Daniels
together.
on it.
A singular flower that, unlike everything else in his life, had not changed at all. From there, the White Knight, in his own grief, sought the endless slaughter of evil in the pursuit of justice and sanctity, the very tenets of his late master's teachings. He vowed to cleanse the world of monsters, poverty, and evil. But along this path of seemingly endless carnage, his black sword thirsted for blood, and he was the White Knight no longer. As the blood-stained knight, he would not be seen as anything more than a source of
so that's where the artifacts that come
By
from.
his lonesome, he ventured into what remained of Khaenri'ah, but found none to save. Yet in the depths of the abyss, at the very bottom of the world, he uncovered the truth about the monsters he had fought. The monsters
this is that
had taken the...
This is that good lore, though. I had to stop again for a sec, because I really appreciate, like, how much she's going into detail with this, so we could, like, fully understand what the hell is going on. Like, this is that good, dark lore that I've been wanting from Genshin, and I want from their story to proceed on. Like, this is the type of stuff that I've been, like, craving in this damn game. But anyways, let's continue.
The life of the wolf pup Rostam. He could not tolerate the injustices perpetuated by Celestia and the gods, and so to the abyss, he pledged his loyalties. As for Rosalyne, after having returned from her studies, she learned of her lover's demise and was utterly broken. She mourned this loss for quite some time, and her once ever lovely song developed a bitter melancholy to it. The dandelions carry in the summer wind. Autumn brings the fragrance of grain, but no wind in any season on earth shall have you gaze upon me again. Eventually, she would sing no more, and her eyes would be dry. What she sought now, and forevermore, was vengeance. As such, she planned to use all that remained of her life to exact the extermination of all monsters and cleanse the world of its crookedness.
Yeah, because that would work.
Her mortal form, Rosalyne would make
if it was only that simple, huh?
Technique long since lost to history. With it, she would become the very embodiment of what is known as liquid fire.
Liquid fire?
The love and longing within her heart, the beauty and fragility of her soul were burned away. Rosalyne was no more. This was the birth of the Crimson Witch of Flames. So
I feel bad for her though, because damn, she was a good person and she had good intentions with what she was doing. It's just she became so obsessed with it that it took her down a path, well, that we're about to see. Crimson Witch of Flames
was now one paved by hellfire. At the time, despite her deference, with her flames only bringing harm to monstrous entities, the people still feared her. They sought to drive her away, as she became a symbol of great infamy as denoted by a score of scholars. But she did not care. She had no more tears to cry and no more blood to be shed.
She was on demon time, man.
The Crimson Witch would be approached by the jester Piero, first of the Fatui Harbingers. Her very existence fascinated him, and he sought to recruit her, offering for the flames that devoured her form to be extinguished by the Tsaritsa. It was at this time that he would provide her with a cryo delusion. And at this point, the Crimson Witch was little more than a hellbent zombie. Yet with the power of this delusion to momentarily seize her flames, she would find herself at a crossroads between the corruption of the past and what was a stainless future. And as such, she would agree to this proposition. She believed that they shared a unified goal: to cleanse all sources of distortion in the world.
Once again, if it was only that simple, but it's not.
The darkness perpetuated by the abyss. She agreed to become an instrument of such a grandiose purpose, as no matter her form, the ashes of the dead had long since stained every inch of her being in ways that could never be cleansed. The Crimson Witch of Flames was no more. This was now the fair lady, La Signora, number 8 of the 11 Fatui Harbingers. Now, when it comes to the playable story of Genshin Impact, our very first interaction with Signora was in her native country of Mondstadt, wherein she would claim the genosis of the Anemo Archon, Barbados, now known as Venti. Now, during this, Signora's contempt for the deity was all too clear, and in recognizing all that she had gone through
this is when Venti gets bodied and kicked in the stomach, yeah?
She referred to him as a rodent all throughout, and apparently longed to confront him in person, furthermore calling him an absentee and belittling his status as a god. And again, Signora's desires extend to the riddance of worthless gods as well. After all, the Archons were partially to blame for the advent of the calamity. Additionally, Venti is by far the weakest Archon, so much so that in witnessing this exchange, it's hard to even quantify his power to be on par with many of our vision wielders.
Yeah.
Venti is a literal embodiment of everything Signora hated about the gods. Yet even still, in the presence of the Geo and Electro Archons, she was for the most part rather well-mannered and respectful.
Well, yeah, because she knew that Zhongli could body her.
She recognizes their strength, but also seeks the fulfillment of her duties beyond her own sentiments, just as an instrument would. And from what we know about Her Majesty the Tsaritsa, as a god to have taken the position of Archon after the calamity, Signora's convictions
sure, the void, is that you?
character in the wake of the Cataclysm seem to be incredibly similar to her own, which would explain Signora's faith and loyalty to her, and why Venti's sly remark about her was a breaking point for Signora. Now, when the Traveler began to push Signora in the midst of their battle, she opted to pull out all the stops and underwent
go into her second form.
Yet again, drawing upon the power of her pyrovision, a relic of her former self, and the power bestowed upon her in accordance with the heavenly principles.
I don't think she has a vision, right? No.
Yet
I don't believe Signora had a vision.
She was not the Crimson Witch of Flames she once was, but rather the Crimson Witch of Embers, which is to say that her flame had long since perished, and the power that remained was, for a lack of better words, diluted. But yes, Signora would be vanquished by the Raiden Shogun, and this fate of hers is sure to have an impact on the remainder of the story. Perhaps Signora was bluffing, but the execution of a Shineznayan diplomat may come with certain repercussions. Yet even still, Signora fulfilled her purpose. She had successfully secured the genoses of the Anemo and Geo Archons, and the one possessed by the Electro Archon was secured by the Balladeer Scaramouche. And so with that, further Inazuman occupation is bound to be unfavorable. What I'm more fascinated by would be the inevitable power vacuum to be found with her absence. Although united under the Tsaritsa, each of the 11 Fatui Harbingers operates independently from the others, possessing command over their very own divisions. And so what is to become of that seat will be interesting indeed.
Somebody's gonna have to take the seat.
Will her forces be reallocated elsewhere, or will a new member entirely be brought amongst their ranks?
I would love for a new member to take the spot, and it'd just be somebody that's seen as like a cracked out threat. That's what I want. Genshin, Mihoyo, please. Give us a new crazy villain that we'll take seriously. I'm begging you. I mean, we got Scaramouche, but with, like, somebody else too. Like, we should have like, there should be like a whole, like, you know, in Naruto Shippuden, without saying any spoilers, you know how they have the Akatsuki, right? And they have all the bunch of members. That's how this should feel, like the Akatsuki. Honestly. Anyways.
And if that is to be the case, that would mean
there's Akatsuki in normal Naruto too, but anyways.
As their ranks are based on seniority, which is pretty insane considering just how long Signora had been around in this world. Now, understandably, even for those unfamiliar with the contents of her life prior, the death of Signora was an unfortunate occurrence, as it serves to severely lessen the likelihood of her being released as a playable character at some point. And to an extent, there had always been some degree of issue to be found with the prospect of such a thing. Firstly, as many have said in the past, making her playable with that complicated dress of hers would have been an issue for sure.
And yeah, if she was ever to come back, they're gonna have to censor the hell out of her. That's what they would have to do. Because of the direction of Genshin right now. Let's be honest.
But beyond just that, SIGNORA'S power was one she could no longer wield at her leisure. The power of cryo she possessed was one provided to her by way of her delusion, what at this point in the game's lifespan may have been a difficult thing to deal with logistically. I mean, would she be able to benefit from constellations? And let's be honest, for the sake of monetization, she would pretty much have to. Right now, Tartaglia is our only playable Fatui point of reference, and his case is actually the inverse. His Electro Delusion form is inaccessible to us. With all this being said, although SIGNORA'S life may have been taken,
I always thought about how that form isn't available.
Is subject to anime logic, and so I wouldn't dismiss the possibility of a return at all.
I like the one thing I wonder is if they would ever do a thing of how they do in Honkai Impact, if where they have like a fragment core for a character. So basically you have the character, right? And then it's still the same character, but they have a whole other form that lets you use different moves for that same character. So I wonder if they'd ever do that for Tartaglia, and his ult would end up being that other form that we just saw. I don't know, just an idea. But
I wouldn't bet on it, but it's not impossible. SIGNORA
would be
was no
interesting.
longer human, and she was the embodiment of liquid flame. And with that, in respect to the artifact known as Witch's ever-burning plume, we have an ever-burning bird feather said to burn for all eternity. The symbolism of which is shared by the mythological creature known as the Phoenix, an especially long-lived bird of flames said to be enriched with new life by rising from the ashes of its predecessor. And with Genshin Impact's many mythological inspirations, I believe the depiction of SIGNORA to be representative of the Phoenix. And so with that in mind, don't get me wrong, SIGNORA is dead. Her concern for the loss of her own life was genuine. Yet even still, another may emerge in her stead, newly enriched and suffused with the power of
Shout out
Pyro,
Fuhua from Honkai.
and at that point, hopefully playable. But there you have it, guys. This has been the life and death of La Signora.
Wow, that was some good lore, good backstory. I understand more about her now than I did before, for sure.
Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to Whalestat with notifications on.
Check them out.
I'm also curious how you may feel about the character now knowing of her tragic past. For me, this is one of the most fascinating bits of lore available in the game right now, and definitely serves to characterize SIGNORA well beyond just being a mean lady with ice and fire. And I eagerly await what I hope will be the continuation of her story in some way, shape, or form, even if just the fruition of her desires by way of the Fatui. But yeah, guys, I have been your host, Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching, and have an awesome day.
You love you, brother. You too. That was a great video. Be sure to show them love. You already know the deal. But damn, that lore, that was quite a bit. Like, stuff like this gets me excited for Genshin. It really does. Because, like, damn, y'all have so much, like, good, impactful, dark lore. Just, like, and you implement it, like, here and there. Like, I'm not going to say they don't do it at all, because there is points where they hit us with information, and it's like, wow. You know, like, for instance, at the end of that Archon quest or whatever, and when we were asking about, like, Scaramouche and stuff, that's, like, when we were asking the Raiden Shogun, and we found out all this information, it's like, wow, this is actually really cool, useful information that we would want to know. I need more of that, you know? Because not everybody's reading the manga for Genshin and seeing everything that's going on like that. So I feel like it's important if you want to keep people really invested in what the hell's going on, and for people to take this story seriously, for them to add that stuff in more, you know? You don't have to do it in the way where you did it in that Archon quest of where, okay, we just sit there for like 10 minutes and we're asking the Raiden Shogun questions and she answers, but put it in like normal dialogue with characters. Put it in a cutscene or something of where it explains, like the fancy cutscenes they do, explain the lore of certain things through that. You're able to do it in multiple ways, for sure. But I will say, after this, I do feel like pretty bad for SIGNORA, you know? Because she was just a normal girl, man. She didn't have bad intentions, she just went down the dark path. Life got really effed up, and that's just the way that it went in the end, you know? So it's very unfortunate that she had to get taken out the way that she did, but at the same time, you know, it is what it is, you know? So I'm really curious to see who takes the mantle and takes the seat in her whole, like, Fatui situation with all that. It'll be very interesting to see for sure. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Be sure to hit the like button, Subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to hit that 4,000 subscribers in February. That's the goal. Discord server, description box below, completely free to join. That helps out a bunch too. And other than that, I appreciate y'all, love y'all. I'll see y'all back on the channel, hopefully with some more Genshin content and many other games too. And as always, don't do crack.
Be sure to subscribe to the Special K Experience if you enjoyed this video. If not, you're going to Femboy IHOP.